Okay, so we're working on solving unknown variables. Now, we had worked on simplifying, but in this question, notice we have an equal sign in the middle, which means we have values on the left and the right. If we have values on the left and the right, that means we can probably solve for our unknown variable here. So, in order to do that, we do have to simplify like terms. And since there are terms that are constant and other terms that have a variable, what we're going to do is move all the constant terms to one side and all the terms attached to a variable to the other side. Doesn't matter what side you go to.
But then just turn the opposite, like negative to positive, right?
That's right. Well, if it's plus and minus. If there's division or multiplication, we use the opposite sign too. So, for instance, I've quickly looked at, and these three are like terms. They're all constants, but they're on different sides of the equation. So I'm going to move my constants to the right side of the equation, okay? Which means I'm still left with positive 8.4x, but the other two terms on the left side of the equal sign have moved. We have 6.2x. I'm going to leave the negative 4.2. And now, this positive 3.12 becomes what on the other side? That's right. And the positive 9.33? Negative 9.33. Good. I also need to move this 6.2 to the other side of the equation because there's a variable attached to it. So scroll down a little. We're going to get 8.4x. And when I move positive 6.2x to the other side, what will we get? Negative 6.2x is equal to negative 4.2 minus 3.12 and minus 9.33. Okay? All right? We're going to simplify our like terms. So on this side, we simplify this. 8.4 minus 6.2, and that's going to give us 2.2, right? 2.2x. And on the other side, we're going to use our calculator. Oh, where did that thing go? There it is. We'll use the calculator to help us simplify this. So we have 16.65.
Yeah, negative 16.65.
Oh, awesome. Negative 16.65. Excellent. Okay, so we've simplified both sides, but I still haven't solved for the unknown variable. Now, a coefficient beside a variable means multiplication. To move it to the other side, what do I need to do with it?
Divide.
That's right. We got to divide. So when I divide negative 16.65, I'll get a negative answer. And what will I get?
Negative 0.75.
Point?
Negative 7.5.
Negative 7.56.
56.
Good.
Yeah.
There we go. And that's our unknown value. All right, another question we're solving for an unknown variable. On this side, we have a fraction. Especially because we have a fraction that's with a decimal, we're going to try to eliminate this fraction, so we're just working with two straight lines, okay? Or terms on the top, you could say. This value says 18.62 plus z, and this term, because it's a fraction, means divided by. Divided by 2.01. Now I want to move that 2.01 to the other side, so what do, Sam? We can't deal with that first because that's on the top of the fraction. I want to move the bottom part over so that I no longer deal with fractions. I multiply because this says division. That line there means division, so to move it to the other side, we use the opposite operation. Oh, that's a little far. And we're going to be multiplying by 2.01. So we're going to rewrite this out. This will now read 18.62 plus z is equal to negative 1.2 times 2.01. Now I no longer have any fractions. This will be a little simpler for us to work with. I'm going to figure out what negative 1.2 times 2.01 is. It's going to give me a negative value. 1.2 times 2.01, 2.412. So we've simplified the right side. I have 18.62 plus z. Now remember, the goal in these questions is to get z or the unknown variable by itself. So we're going to bring 18 over, and when I bring it over, what operation? That's right. It's going to be subtracting because it's technically a positive value. So we'll get z is equal to negative 2.412, subtract 18.62. Z will be equal to what value? 21 something? Negative 21.032. Okay, last question. This one is relatively confusing. Now, in the last one, we wanted to get rid of all of our fractions, right? Well, this one's dealing with a number plus a fraction divided by another fraction. It can be very, very confusing. I'm going to change all my fractions into decimals because I think you guys are a little stronger with those. So we're going to change these into decimals, which means that I'll have k plus 0.2 divided by 0.33. Rounding to 2 decimal places is good enough, okay? We round it to 2 places. It's still equal to k over 2. Now, I want to get rid of the fractions, okay? So I'm going to start by getting rid of the 2 on the bottom of this k. Because this is divided by, what do we got to do to the other side of the equation? Multiply. So when it comes over, I'm going to be multiplying by 2. Now this gets a little confusing because it looks like 2 times k plus 0.2 divided by, and I'm putting these brackets in here to help us. I'll explain it in a second. Is equal to k. Now, this, if we look at this as a whole term, is a fraction itself. So we're going to be multiplying fractions here. And we talked about this yesterday. How can I turn 2 into a fraction? Over 1. And now when we multiply fractions, what do we do? Top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. Is the bottom going to change at all? What's 1 times 0.33? It's going to stay the exact same term. Okay? Now I want to get these all in one because I want to show you a shortcut after, so it doesn't get too confusing. So, in other words, see how the way I wrote this 2? When you have a fraction on the other side and you're multiplying, that term really just goes to the top of the fraction. So the 2 is multiplied by our k plus 0.2. And the bottom part of the fraction stayed the exact same. So I want you guys just to recognize from this step to this step, we could have kind of skipped that middle step there. And when we bring the 2 over, it just goes to the top of the opposite fraction. Okay, this is also known as cross-multiplying when we have 2 fractions with an equal sign between them. So before I even figure that out, I'm going to move the 0.33 to the other side. And because it's divided by, what do we have to do? Multiply. So now I have 2 times k plus 0.2 is equal to k times 0.33. Now that we have that, I do have to do something called distributing. Because this is a number times 2 terms inside a bracket, we have to multiply it in. So this will now become 2k plus 0.4, and this could be written as 0.33k. Okay? Now we got to get all of our like terms together. I'm going to move this 2k to the other side. What's it going to become? It will, negative, good. Minus 2k. We're going to equate that. 0.4 is equal to 1.67. Is that right? Somebody use a calculator. Negative 1.67. Okay. Yeah, okay. So it's negative 1.67. And then finally, I got to get the k by itself. So what do I got to do with that negative 1.67 to move it? It's got to become divided by negative 1.67. So a lot of movement in this question, just to isolate that k. 0.4 divided by negative 1.67. 2 decimal places. So that's going to be negative 0.24. Negative 0.24 is our final answer. So a whole lot of movement in that question, if you guys notice. A lot more than we had done in any previous question.